Welcome everybody to this Planning Committee meeting, the 6th of February 2024. Welcome to members of the public. There's going to be a slight change of the way we do things today. Normally there's only one objector and one supporter allowed because of the degree of public interest in the application with regards to Castle Meadows in Abergavenny. I'm going to make an exception and allow additional speakers. Can I ask that everybody has seen all of the late correspondence on that one and has watched the video from OneLife? Okay, so everybody's got that in context. Okay, thanks very much. I'm Councillor Phil Murphy. I'm the chair of the committee. Dale?
Councillor Dale Rook, and I'm the vice chair of the committee.
Craig O'Connor, head of planning.
Philip Thomas, development services manager.
Amy Longford, development management area manager.
Andrew Jones, development management area manager.
Paige Mosley, solicitor to planning committee.
Anna Hawker, trainee solicitor.
Richard Williams, democratic services.
Thank you, everybody. We go to the agenda now. And Richard, any apologies for absence?
Just one apology, Chair, from Councillor Sue McConnell.
Okay, thank you. Declarations of interest, Dale?
Yes, Chair. I'm declaring an interest as on the application DM 2023-01562, the Castle Dell development, as I'm currently a representative from Chepstow Town Council with the Friends of the Dell Park Group.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Birch.
Thank you, Chair. When I had the privilege of serving as the Cabinet Member with responsibility for active travel, I was heavily involved in the detail of the scheme and really feel I could walk around it in my sleep. I shall not be taking part in the debate on the Castle Meadows application. Okay, thank you very much for that. Go on to confirming the accuracy of the minutes of the previous meeting. Councillor Webb? Thank you. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Powell? Thank you. Can I do my usual reminder to everybody who's online to keep your cameras on, please, otherwise you won't be able to vote, to mute yourselves unless you're actually speaking. And can I ask people who are not members of this committee to switch their cameras off so that we don't get confused as to who's on, but obviously to put them back on if you're addressing the committee. We'll move on to the first item on the agenda then, which is item 4.1, which is application DM 2022/01831. It's improvements to the existing pedestrian and cycle connectivity across Castle Meadows in Abergavenny by providing active travel compliant routes. This includes an upgrade of the existing routes, access points and the replacement of the existing footbridge over the River Gavenny. As I said, we are going to have slightly different arrangements for this one. Can I, before I ask the officer to come in, can I remind everybody that this is an application that actually relates to the resurfacing work and the replacement of the Gavenny Bridge. I'll remind you of that before we actually vote. Andrew.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, members and members of the public. So, just to confirm the reasons why the application is presented to you today, it's due to the number of representations received and also the fact that it's an application that has been made by Monmouthshire County Council. And just to expand and touch upon the point that the Chair has just raised, I would like to set out at this early stage as a point of clarity for the avoidance of any doubt or confusion that the access points, and that includes the cattle grid system, do not form part of this application and therefore not before you today as part of your planning judgment. The Council's active travel team continue to engage with Transport Wales on this matter with a view to providing a resolution. But just wanted to make that point clear from the outset. So if we just turn to the presentation, hopefully you can see on screen. So this, apologies, the photographs are probably not legible, but that's just the existing site layout and arrangements on screen. So turning then next to the proposed layout and configuration. I say a lot of the members will be familiar with the site anyway, and we did visit last year to walk over the route. And then turning to the next slide, that will show the proposed landscaping plan, which is I'll come on to later. That's covered through planning conditions. There's a helpful illustration on the next slide, which gives you an example of the type of surfacing that's proposed. We may touch back on that later, but that's quite a useful visual illustration of what it's intended for the resurfacing works. And that's just, again, apologies for the size of the photographs, but it's just some examples there of some of the landscaping and some of the interpretive boards and street furniture that would be sited along the route. And then finally, we'll just go through the site photographs for the benefit of anyone not familiar with the site. So a view there looking towards the Blorange, and just going through these now. These are all mainly taken from the periphery of the site. That's taken from Merthyr Road. You can see the route there, it runs to the right. And then on to the next one. It's a nice view there looking towards the castle in the background. Again, as part of the route. It's just a couple more. They're taken on the approach to the site. I think there's one final view there taken as you come down, if you were to come down from the Byfield car park. So it's probably worth just as a small piece of background. So this application before us today does sit as part of a wider project that was initially born out of the requirement for all local authorities in Wales to provide active travel network maps. The Council, Monmouthshire County Council, undertook public consultation on existing and proposed walking and cycling routes around the county in 2021. And you'll note in paragraph 1.33 of the Officers' Committee report that this provides a summary of the findings that are relevant and pertinent to Abergavenny and Llanfoist. So the development subject to this application forms part of a three-stage programme, and you will also be aware, members, that the proposed bridge across the River Usk, linking to Castle Meadows to Llanfoist, has already the benefit of planning permission. So the Officers' Committee report provides a detailed assessment of the material planning considerations against both local and national policy. So I'll provide an overview of these that will form part of your decision-making today. So in terms of visual impact, design placemaking, and with regards to the design choices made, the upgrades would involve the widening of the route up to a maximum of 3 metres in places. The surface would be finished with a permeable resin bond in a buff colour. We did see on the slide earlier a helpful example of what that would look like. And that choice of surface is also integral to the wider drainage strategy. It is also worth pointing out that a sample of this material is proposed to be managed by way of appropriate planning condition. As noted, part of this application is also sought to provide a replacement bridge with a 3-metre wide deck that would span over the River Gavenny and will follow the footprint of the existing structure. So the 18-metre span would be maintained together with the soffit level, but due to the increased width of the structure, the abutments would have to be marginally increased. However, the deck would be thinner than the existing, which would allow a reduction in the ramp access steepness and length. So overall, the works subject to this application are considered on balance to be of an appropriate scale and design with only localised impacts. As such, subject to appropriate planning conditions, the development is considered to be acceptable in placemaking terms and compliant with relevant policies within the adopted local development plan. In terms of landscape, and this covers quite a broad sort of subsections, officers certainly recognise that the application site is within a very sensitive location. You'll have seen in section 6.5 of your officers' committee report identifying the list of both scheduled ancient monuments and registered parks and gardens in the vicinity of this site. However, the proposal has been subject to engagement with the relevant statutory consultees, with CADU recognising that whilst the changes may be visible from these designated historic assets, they would not alter the way they're experienced, understood and appreciated. The site is also within the Abergavenny Conservation Area, and the Council's Heritage Officer, noting that the proposed route is well considered in terms of avoiding direct impact to more sensitive areas and minimising its impact, and will improve the current arrangement. So therefore, having regard to the requirements of policy HE1 of the local development plan, officers are satisfied that the proposals would continue to preserve the character and appearance of the Abergavenny Conservation Area. Also, given the nature of the works, with regards to below-ground heritage assets, there are records in the vicinity, and however, these impacts will be managed through the use of best practice and mitigation measures that would be detailed in the Construction Environment Management Plan, and would consist of works including a no-dig construction for the works involving the footpaths around the castle. In addition, a watching brief would be in place during the construction phase. Having regard to other landscape matters, the majority of Castle Meadows is designated as an area of amenity importance within the LDP, and it does host a number of protected trees, both individual and groups. A landscape management plan has been submitted with the application, and the Council's landscape officer offers no objection to development subject to appropriate planning conditions, including compliance with the aforementioned management plan. And in terms then of biodiversity, as with landscape, the site is of significant ecological value. The site is within the River Usk Special Area of Conservation, or SAC, and Lower Usk Site of Special Scientific Interest, the SSSI. In addition to this, the River Gavenny Site of Importance for Nature Conservation, or abbreviated to SINC, is located within the southeastern section of the site. So as one might expect, a comprehensive suite of ecological surveys has been submitted, including additional surveys for water voles and otters. In response to some of these considerations, the footprint of the path was shifted north to reduce further land take from the SAC. The proposal has been subject to an appropriate assessment, also referred to as an AA, under the Conservation of Habitats and Species Regulations, which was undertaken by the Council's Biodiversity Officer. Natural Resources Wales have considered the mitigation measures detailed in the AA and have agreed with the conclusions that the development is unlikely to have an adverse effect upon the integrity of the River Usk Special Area of Conservation, subject to detailed conditions. And these are set out in full within the Officers' Committee report, but for reference would include a construction environmental management plan, implementation of biodiversity enhancement features, and the management of lighting. Turning to the next planning consideration, and that being flooding, and whilst the proposal and the application relates to less vulnerable development, the site is within the Zone C2, having regard to NRW's flood risk map. Accordingly, it is upon the local planning authority to consider whether development is justified having regard to the tests and requirements of the town. A flood consequence assessment and drainage report have both been submitted in respect of the flood risk and drainage-related impacts of the proposed active travel scheme. Officers are satisfied that the proposed routes will not have an unacceptable impact on flood risk elsewhere, as there will be no impediment to flood flows and drainage will mimic the existing regime. Natural Resources Wales have been consulted on the flood consequence assessment and have confirmed that it shows that the risks and consequences of flooding are manageable to an acceptable level. Therefore, NRW have offered no objection on flood risk grounds to the application as submitted. And to confirm, whilst a separate consenting regime to planning, SAB approval would be required for the works. However, the applicant has engaged with the SAB team and proposes a permeable surface discharging by infiltration. And evidence has been provided to the satisfaction of the SAB officer that shows that soils are sufficiently permeable to allow infiltration drainage. And finally, just to touch upon some other matters, you will have seen a variety of other matters raised through the consultation exercise as part of this application, including some matters that are not material planning considerations. However, there are two, that's in section 611 of the report, but there are two themes and issues that have been raised that I'll briefly comment upon. And these are the possibility and consideration of an alternative route, or natural desire line as it's been referred to, and also secondly, safety concerns with regards to the access points. In respect of suggested alternate routes raised by third parties, it's important to clarify that this is not the proposal before you today, members, and your planning judgment and decision making is on the submitted plans that form part of this application. The suggested routes are noted and their reasons fully understood. However, other routes were considered early in this project as part of the WellTag process and options appraisal, for reasons including ecological sensitivities of the site and a desire to manage cyclist speeds. The enhancements of the existing routes and services was taken forward and is now what's progressed to this planning application as submitted. And finally, as stated at the outset, the access points, in whatever form they ultimately take, could be carried out under permitted development rights and therefore do not form part of the application before you today. So in conclusion, the application has been subject to very detailed consideration by both officers as well as our statutory consultees. And having regard to relevant planning policies, as well as to all other material planning consideration, the development is on balance considered to be acceptable and forms an important part of a wider project to help encourage a modal shift in travel to walking and cycling away from the reliance on the private motor vehicle. It is therefore presented to you today, members, with a recommendation of approval subject to the detailed conditions set out in the committee report. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. And next to speak is the local member, Councillor Laura Wright. Can I remind everybody online, though, that if they wish to speak on this, to use the raise hand function in the chat rather than coming on my screens. Otherwise, I'll probably miss you. Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I want to thank officers and other elected members who have worked so hard on this scheme, and they've been very generous with their time. You know, they've met me on the meadows multiple times to walk around, discuss the proposals and my concerns on more than one occasion, and they've always been very responsive to my pretty relentless stream of emails. So I live about a 5-minute walk from Castle Meadows. I'm extremely familiar with it. I use it most days to walk my dog Shadow, who I think many of you have met. And I'm acutely aware of how lucky I am to be able to access the meadows with ease whenever I want to. So I really would like to see accessible routes through the meadows so that everybody can have the opportunity to spend time in such a beautiful place. I think you'll all be aware that this is a long-running and very contentious issue in Abergavenny. It's one of the issues that I have been contacted about the most since I was elected in May 2022. One of the things I promised to deliver when I stood for election was to stop any use of tarmac on the meadows, and I'm really pleased that that has happened, and I'm grateful again for all the work that was put in to alter the plans to include that porous buff-coloured surface instead. I think the visual impact is now substantially reduced by the use of that surface while providing the smooth surface that's needed. in the large amount of contact that I've had, mostly from Abergavenny residents and regular users of the meadows, I would say that the majority view is in favour of parts of the scheme. There is a general recognition of the need to improve accessibility and encourage active travel, not just for cyclists, but for pedestrians and a whole range of other people. I met with a couple of people who use mobility scooters and would like to be able to use the meadows more. I spoke to somebody with a condition that causes a great deal of pain when they're forced to travel over uneven surfaces, and that really brought home to me how much we do need new paths, as the condition of the current paths are making the meadows unusable for some. However, I also have significant and serious reservations about aspects of the proposed development. The Friends of Castle Meadows and others have made multiple representations about their concerns around the impact on the biodiversity of the meadows, which are rare floodplain meadows with distinct flora and fauna that need to be preserved. They are experts in the area. They've worked to preserve and improve the meadows for so many years, and I feel that they've not been properly listened to, and their concerns around inadequacies in the mitigation plans haven't been properly addressed. In fact, many residents feel that they have not been adequately consulted or listened to during the entire process that has led to the plans in their current form. I'm personally concerned that these proposals are over-engineering the meadows, and they're going to result in too many square metres of green space being covered in a hard surface at great cost to local biodiversity. Ideally, I would like to see fewer paths while still maintaining improved access to minimise the environmental impact. Finally, I am aware, of course, that the cattle grids are not part of today's application. Well, the entrance and exit points, which may be cattle grids, are not part of today's application. But I don't think that we can not discuss those at all, because I think the biggest thing that is making the scheme feel unacceptable to residents that I speak to are the cattle grids. I mean, I know Jo is here today, Jo Waters here today, and her dog Eva died on the trial cattle grid. And I actually saw it happen, and it was so distressing, so appalling, and I would never want that to happen to anybody else's dog. And certainly, I can only imagine how that would be. 1 minute, thank you. So, yes, what I would ask of the committee today is to pause and reconsider and await a guarantee of no cattle grids being used anywhere on the entrance or exit points before any scheme goes ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. And if you want to sum up at the end, just attract my attention. Okay, thank you. The next person I've got on my list to speak is Andrew Erskine, who I believe you can address us from up there. Andrew, you've got 4 minutes, and can you remember to switch your microphone off when you finish? Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm speaking on behalf of the Abergavenny Action Group and the Friends of Castle Meadows. We fully support the project to improve Castle Meadows. It's a great opportunity to ensure its long-term future. We also give our full support for the essential bridge which has been passed to cross over the Usk. We do not represent a single group or stakeholder. We encompass an umbrella of the residents of Abergavenny and Land Forest who cherish the meadows so close to their homes. Families with young children, walkers young and old, hard of hearing, visually impaired, mobility scooters, cyclists and cycle groups, commuters, schools, dog waters. Castle Meadows may be the last off-lead area of Abergavenny. Nature walks, Friends of the Castle Meadows, the volunteers who have put in thousands of hours of unpaid time. These are the people we've been talking with who regularly visit the meadows. 400,000 to 500,000 people pass through the gates annually, of which just 6,000 are cyclists, less than 2%. At the first public consultation in February 2021, the only route under consideration was this 3-metre wide cycle track, after consultation with Just a Cycle Group. We support better access and improved paths, but there are other issues of concern. We raised these concerns with councillors and officers on the 17th of July. They listened to us and did promise a meeting to answer them before coming before this committee. No meeting has been arranged. Only by listening to the needs of the many stakeholders can an inclusive plan be achieved. This is why we see this development as an opportunity. Full consideration is required on the impact of a much wider path for pedestrians mixing with cycles, electric bikes, electric scooters, hoverboards, skateboards, etc., and the differing needs of wheeled users as opposed to active A to B travellers. In relation to the proposed routes, this submission by a cycle club is significant. The new bridge includes a link to Merthyr Road, a good linking road, and no matter whether there are good links across Castle Meadows, this will always be faster and more direct, and therefore a popular choice for cyclists travelling between Llanfoist and Abergavenny town centre. The track to Byfield Car Park offers no easy onward travel. The track into Mill Street offers a 1 in 8 climb or a detour via Cross Street and Castle Street, which makes the route along Merthyr Road more attractive. There are safety concerns at all the entrances, but particularly these two. Is it really necessary to replace the bridge over the Gavenny? Even Cycle Club members questioned the need and also indicated that a 2-metre wide track to Isbitty Fields would be sufficient. The cattle grids may have been removed from the plan as planning permission is not required. They are highly contentious and must be subject to scrutiny and debate. Delegated powers to choose a gate or a style is very different from the high risk presented by cattle grids. If proposed by planning, it should be absolutely subject to approval by this committee. The latest plans for grids give serious cause for concern. No speed reduction measures, gaps of 5 inches between the bars on the cattle grids, the potential for a heavy electric bike travelling at 10 to 15 mph over a cattle grid to be suddenly confronted by a child, dog or cow in their path must be considered. Where is the due diligence on health and safety and the risk assessment we asked for? We have had one tragic accident with a dog losing its life. The risk of litigation following a serious accident cannot be ruled out. The only rationale behind the grids is to allow cyclists to pass through without stopping. They have to stop at road junctions, so why not at pedestrian junctions? The new push to open closing gates have been widely welcomed, and cyclists are very happy to use them, whether on a road bike or a cargo bike. Many said they would never use a cattle grid anyway. The existing Grasscrete paths are still serviceable and have lasted over 30 years. A 3-metre wide bound track with a total length of over a mile.
Your 4 minutes, Andrew.
Will severely detract from the natural aspect of the meadows. It will require much more maintenance, removing silt, three floods so far this year, and the edge of the bound surface can be susceptible to moss, which will need clearing without chemicals. A Grasscrete track has recently been installed in Clydach Nature Reserve, so why not in Castle Meadows? Sustrans recommend a 3-metre wide part, although a 2-metre wide part is also acceptable.
Can you start the wind up, please?
Okay.
You had
I will do this. Okay.
Now.
We agree that there is little need to increase the width. A new modern creek path 2 metres wide would more than suffice. The planting schedule is unnecessary and inappropriate. Has the main stakeholder, the farmer, been consulted? He's nearing retirement, his son is taking over. Are they happy with the proposals? In conclusion, there is a need for full consultation, which includes all stakeholders. Our concerns should be answered. The new bridge will give an excellent opportunity to gauge changes in usage. We're asking for the plan to be paused. No decision should be made until a decision on the cattle grids has been made, or the uncertainties around stage 3, or indeed the planned Velo Park, have been resolved. In these difficult times, you also need to consider the message that could be conveyed.
Andrew, please, you've gone way over your time.
Okay, I've just got one more sentence. In these difficult times, you need to consider the message conveyed by committing to such a large investment when council tax is rising. Services are being reduced and potholes remain on our streets and pavements. It may come from a different fund, but you think your constituents will appreciate the difference. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll let the officers and Paul Sullivan from MCC come in later on after Mr. Haswell has spoken. Can I remind everybody that what we are, keep on doing this, what we are looking at today, there's a lot of reference in there to the cattle grids. They are not part of what we're looking at today. Mr. Houseford, you've got 4 minutes, and if you can knock the mic off when you're finished and talk directly into the mic, please just drop it down closer. That's it. Lovely. Thank you.
Members, good afternoon. I speak to you on behalf of the Abergavenny Development Forum. We've been making constructive proposals for the enhancement of our town for over 20 years, and many of the recent townscape improvements in Abergavenny originated from our team, and there's more to offer. I will not be speaking for or against the proposals. Instead, we'll be suggesting amendments which will improve the layout of the routes, which are currently based on the unusual concept of right angles. We believe that following existing or projected new desire lines makes more sense. Additionally, we'll be making serious recommendations for recycling of on-site materials. But our story begins in 2018. First slide, please, Phil. Oh, it's there. This slide was presented to stakeholders and your committee in support of the planning application for the new Usk Bridge. It clearly shows the intention to follow a new and obvious route linking the new bridge to the town centre via the Byfield Lane car park. This is what your committee thought they were signing up for. Some of you, Maureen Powell, I guess, might even remember this slide, Maureen. The illustration correctly showed a route that was obvious, predictable, and believable. Quite important. Yet the plans before you today show how the proposal has been completely overlooked in the proposed design. Next slide, please. This is the MCC illustration supported by evidence from Google Earth. It gives context to the active travel plan, showing a mix of organised routes and natural desire lines, often curved in nature. Please note. Next slide, please. By comparison with their 2018 proposal, here is the current new strategy from WSP, which, firstly, abandons the concept of an important link into town. Secondly, ignores the impact of inserting a major new access point into an existing network. And thirdly, employs a design philosophy based on the unusual use of right angles. Right angles. It's a bit like garlic bread, right angles. Landscape designers often might describe this as an inappropriate, if not tyrannical, use of an unfriendly geometry, likely to result in large-scale corner cutting. Next slide, please. Here we see the scheme in more detail. I've shown the missing link in yellow. Page 39 of the report downgrades the importance of this link, stating that, I quote, existing routes were more appropriate for upgrade. Well, you might agree that such a statement is unjustified. WSP also claim that, I quote, the designed routes are more direct, so the impact on the meadows is thereby limited. But we know that the proposed route is not more direct. In fact, the opposite is true. The hypotenuse link that ADF is proposing is always less than the sum of the other two sides. I've checked this out with Mr. Pythagoras.
You're coming up on your 4 minutes, David.
Sorry?
You're coming up on your 4 minutes.
Am I? I've checked this out with Mr. Pythagoras and his wife, and they both agree with ADF. Our final point, next slide, please. The report proposes that when the existing Grass Creek blocks are uplifted from the current riverside walk to make way for the resin surface, they are simply set aside for use in other areas. We suggest this approach is limp, vague, and unconvincing, totally lacking in strategy. Instead, ADF proposes that the blocks are recycled to the northern footpath and used positively to support that well-established route into town. We think this is logical, affordable, and easy to implement. If you agree, then you may wish to impose a supportive condition on any approval you might be minded to grant today. Members, I've circulated through Committee a summary of these points: the right angles, the missing link, the recycling Grasscrete blocks. And there is one small item which I haven't mentioned.
Can you wind up now, please?
Yes. Right here is a safety ramp into the car park, which is long forgotten and is in need of complete, well, more than repair, redesign. It's a risk the council should not take. Assuming there are other matters you were like the officers to address, perhaps there is a case for postponing a decision until all these matters have been resolved, creating time for a bit of earnest tweaking. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Haswell. We've now got a video recording from Samantha Maywick, which I think, Phil, you're playing.
Good afternoon. My name's Sam Merrick and I appreciate being given the opportunity to speak to you all in support of this planning proposal. I apologise for not being there in person today as I have work commitments. As I can't address specifics directly due to my absence, I hope it's okay to speak more generally and widely, and I'll aim to be as concise as possible. I'm 100% in favour of the proposals being put forward today for the part that they play in the wider active travel plans. I've spoken in support before of the plans to improve connectivity and access through the meadows and into Llanfoist. I feel it's fair to mention that as our town continues to expand with multiple new housing developments, Abergavenny and Llanfoist are less the two separate places they once were and are becoming more of a single entity. It makes absolute sense to make travel between these two areas of our town easier and safer for all, whether that be by car, bike or on foot. I understand that a large part of the negativity towards these plans is the fear of a large influx of recreational cyclists speeding their way through the meadows on improved pathways. Let us remember that the meadows is already part of the National Cycle Network, so this isn't new. Recreational cyclists aren't currently using the meadows, and that's not because the surfaces aren't up to standard or that access gates make navigating this part of the network difficult and time-consuming, but because their agenda and reason for cycling is different. They're up for long recreational rides, not making small journeys within the local area. What these unsuitable paths, gates and busy dangerous roads are doing, however, is preventing more individuals and families from choosing to leave their cars at home and getting out and about in more sustainable and healthier ways, whether that be on foot, with children in prams or by bicycle. I choose where possible to take my children, aged 8 and 2, out by bicycle, but this isn't always easy. My son is old enough to ride his own bike now and is a very competent rider. He is, however, not so good when faced with abuse directed not only towards me as an adult, but also himself for being out on the road by car drivers. There was a particularly nasty incident that occurred on Llanfoist Bridge that sadly I don't have time to detail here, but left us all upset and my son shaken. I'm a strong person who has the conviction to stand my ground in trying situations like these, but there are many, many more people for who this sadly is not the case, and experiences like these will prevent them from choosing active travel methods for their local journeys and instead rely on car use. The bridge across the Usk is vital for not only giving families like mine and others who already choose active travel a safer route through our town, but will also give many more people the confidence to make the same choice. Let's look at this new development of 106 2 to 5 bedroom houses, the majority of which will be occupied by families. Llanfoist currently doesn't have a doctor's or dental practice and only one supermarket accessible on that side of the Usk. The vast majority of these people will currently be relying on car usage to meet their basic daily needs. Why am I saying this? We all know that we need to reduce our reliance on car usage, but we can't do this without improvements to our current infrastructure. I appreciate the absolute mammoth task that everyone involved in these plans has had to come against. Not only bring this route up to Sustrans suitability standards, but to also be sympathetic to our local environment. I believe that they've done everything possible to ensure that these decisions are made with the best interests of everybody, that the best interests of everyone, as is proved by their willingness to tweak their previous plans after consultations. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thanks, Phil. And the next person to speak is Paul Sullivan on behalf of the applicants. And Paul, if you could possibly make reference to some of the presentations that's been made up to now, that would be helpful. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Paul Sullivan, Active Travel Communications and Engagement Manager for Monmouthshire. Thank you for taking the time to consider the Castle Meadows planning application this afternoon. Firstly, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank MCC officers, WSP consultants, Abergavenny Town Council and various community groups for their engagement in the scheme to date. The 2021 Active Travel Network Map consultation placed an improved crossing facility over the River Usk within the top 2 priorities across Monmouthshire. This has been a long-standing project dating back to 2012-2013 and has significant support in the community of Abergavenny as well as wider organisations. As with any improved infrastructure, the designated crossing will only be as successful as its associated links. The Lamfoyce Links and Castle Meadows scheme aims to provide exactly that, high quality, active travel infrastructure to enable a movement towards sustainable transport and the associated benefits such as improved air quality, providing a real alternative to short car journeys. The most recent stakeholder consultation for the Castle Meadows scheme saw a total of 566 responses, a strong sample size when compared to various engagements across services within Monmouthshire, and even higher than some local authorities across Wales received on their whole Active Travel Network Map consultation. As part of this, key information was captured. 41% of respondents use Castle Meadows as a route to access for work or education. 49% respondents live less than 1 mile away from Castle Meadows, with 82% of that total living under 2 miles, all within the strategic fit of journeys up to 3 miles for active travel in Monmouthshire. 48% respondents who currently do not use active travel means consider Castle Meadows as inaccessible. 65% respondents said their levels of active travel would likely increase as a result of this proposed scheme. Throughout the scheme development stage, I and the project team have remained committed to find the best possible solutions based on the feedback provided. The Castle Meadows scheme initially proposed lighting across the meadows. Based on feedback, this was removed. In addition, we've listened to the community on the choice of material for the paths and adopted the resin-bound buff-coloured surface as part of today's application. We remain committed to try and find the best possible solutions to this complex scheme whilst maintaining the importance and safety of cattle present. Today's application does not consider the access points as part of the decision for the panel. These elements are covered by permitted development. However, as already discussed and remains and it's not lost on us as a team, the important element of this part of the project. As officers, we are balancing the complexities of the scheme against clear funding guidelines. I've been in the meadows with parents struggling to navigate the current access with pushchairs, mobility scooters not able to get through, and individuals having to lift their bikes over the gates. This cannot and should not continue. Work continues to move forward with detailed conversations around access points with Transport for Wales, using both grid and non-grid access. I would like the panel to note of the ongoing commitment and a significant body of work that has been presented back to the project team and the funding body to date. The current visualisation piece aims to bring this project to life, demonstrating what the future of Castle Meadows could look like, not only for now, but a space that is accessible, welcoming and safeguarded for our future generations. I'll close my comments today with a thought. Throughout the project, we've heard complexities for walkers, dog walkers, runners, cyclists, leisure users, commuters, to name just a few. Regardless of all of these types of users, We are all just people. People who want to be able to provide a meaningful opportunity to leave the car behind and travel to school, to the shops, or even just to access this beautiful green space we are lucky enough to have in Abergavenny. This project is not looking to reduce the importance of Castle Meadows. If anything, it is looking to increase its importance even further throughout the community. With regards to some of the points, I think that Mr. Erskine...
Start winding up, please, Paul.
Yeah, of course. So that's my part finished. Just in response to some of the sections earlier, I think the grid section I just commented on covers some of the points from Mr. Erskine and Councillor Wright. The missing link section, I'll briefly respond to that direct. From an active travel perspective, if I was just looking at purely active travel benefits, that direct link and that missing link, as I've spoken to Mr. Haswell about previously, I would love to have that link. However, this is about a balance of the scheme and maintaining the uniqueness that Castle Meadows is. Hence why the direction for the existing routes has been the preferred option, both for safety, shared use and maintaining the level of green space that we've currently got. Happy to take any further questions as we proceed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Paul. Andrew, do you want to come back on any of those points? And perhaps if you want Paul to help you with any of the stuff, you could bring him in.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, lots of really good points there. Obviously, firstly, to Councillor Wright's points, in terms of, obviously, there's this acknowledgement of some of the benefits in terms of the surface from tarmac to the resin bond. In terms of some of the concerns that were raised and the impact on biodiversity and the adequacy of the survey information provided, obviously we as planning officers engage with our in-house ecologists, with the relevant bodies within NRW and their species team, and they have considered the information provided, and say subject to what are very detailed planning conditions, their advice to us as officers in making a recommendation to members of committee, as the information is appropriate, additional survey work has been provided through the course of the application, as I touched upon in the presentation. So as officers, our advice to you on that point is that the level of survey work and what it's covered is appropriate for you to make an informed planning decision based on, say, the advice of the Council's in-house ecologist and those that sit within Natural Resources Wales. In terms of then the point of over-engineering, I think, say, this option, and there's other options that have been discussed, is working along an existing network. And our view, again, in consultation with our landscape officer and heritage officers, is that the solution is an appropriate level of development, an appropriate finish within what is clearly a very sensitive and important and valued asset to the community, and that the engineering works are not such that they cause unacceptable demonstrable harm. So in terms of the fewer paths comments, I think we feel that the balance is right, and henceforth our recommendation for approval. The comments in regard to the cattle grids and the application before us today, pausing until that matter is resolved. As has been discussed by myself and a few others now, that those works, say, are permitted development, and by that they don't require the benefit of planning permission. So an application for planning permission to the council that would come to committee would not be required for those works, whatever they may be. And obviously, as we've discussed, that solution is subject to ongoing conversations outside of this application process. So that wouldn't be a reason to withhold or delay a determination of this application, because it's works that sit outside that don't require consent. Just turning to the other points that have been made, again, a lot of comments on the cattle grids. So like I said, that wouldn't need to be whatever solution, be it the slow opening gates, or whatever the solution that's implemented ultimately, wouldn't require an application to then come back to this committee, noting that the push gates were welcomed. Turning to Mr. Haswell's comments, I had already addressed those desire lines, etc., during the presentation. Mr. Sullivan, as the applicant, has touched upon there. I think the important message from us as officers is that the route that's been chosen, that's been promoted and put forward as part of this application, from our perspective, is considered to be acceptable, and it is what is before us today. We don't feel it's unacceptable that has warranted negotiation and amendment to consider an alternative to make it acceptable. Our view is that that approach and what's before us is acceptable, and that's why we are recommending the route with those right angles that were discussed is acceptable on its own planning merits. So I think I've covered most of the points that have been raised to date, but obviously member discussion, I'll come back in as and when.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. And I can see the point with regards to the yellow route that could encourage particularly cyclists to come over the bridge and perhaps be going a little bit too quick for pedestrians, but that's just a personal comment. I go to members' questions now, and Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you to all those who have put in so much work with these plans over the years. All I want to do is express what I feel is the most important part of this, and that is to put the bridge over. I come back most weekends from my daughter at Crickhowell, and I come back over the bridge, go down the edge of the valley to my home. And so many nights I've had my heart in my mouth when people with dark clothes on are walking along that narrow path. And several times in the daytime I've seen mothers with children in pushchairs and perhaps a toddler beside them on that teeny path. And I've just, wondered when something's going to happen, because it's not adequate, it's not really safe. And to have that bridge, I know there'll be a couple of times in the year when there's floods, but the majority of the year they'll be able to use that new bridge in safety. And I think this is the most important part of this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Powell. Councillor Pinn.
Diolch yn fawr. Thank you, everyone. Is my mic working? Yeah, okay. Sorry. I thought I sounded very quiet.
Yeah, talk directly into it.
Is that better? Thank you. Some of the objectors' comments mentioned banning electric cycles primarily down to the perceived danger and science of movement. Naturally, Class 2 and 3 powered mobility scooters are allowed to use cycle tracks, and as are e-assist push bikes and trikes and adaptive e-cycles. And I believe the cycle routes across the meadows have been part of the National Cycle Network since the 1990s. But I am presuming that e-motorbikes, as well as other motorised vehicles, will continue to be prohibited. What methods will be taken to prevent damage to the site by unauthorised vehicles, and how will this be mitigated? And also, I couldn't see anything on signage about behavioural expectation, and I wonder if there are plans for share with care or pedestrian priority advisory signs, and signs maybe asking for dogs to be kept on short leads on the main pathways through that are also cycleways, just to reduce the likelihood of conflict between users. And also I had one other question about the resilience of the resin bond path, though I'm really pleased to see that we're not having tarmac, as that was a big concern to many people. What is the expected lifespan of these conditions, and how resilient will they be to farm vehicle crossings and the flooding that we know occurs on the site? Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you, Councillor Pinn, and there were some quite targeted questions there. Andrew or Paul, do you want to deal with those now before we move on to the next questions? Paul, possibly?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, happy to take a couple. With regards to the final question around lifespan, I might refer to colleagues from WSP on the call as well, but if I take the first couple of points. With regards to motorbikes and misuse of the meadows, as with any active travel scheme that's implemented, there'll be a 3-year monitoring, both from a kind of usage and design and information perspective. So that will be monitored as part of that. In reality, the meadows could be accessible for misuse now as it could be in the future. And I think whenever we look at potential barriers across any of our networks for active travel, in reality, if you place barriers, you're then placing barriers for legitimate users to use as well. So all of the access points will be designed to provide accessibility for legitimate users, and obviously any misuse of that would be reported through the relevant channels. With regards to signage, again, important from a width perspective, we're looking at 3 metres, which is the width required in terms of national design guidance for shared use. So there will be the standard blue signage donating that. But I think the share with care message is important. And I think with some other schemes that we've delivered, I think engagement with local schools as part of that work would be a nice piece to engage as we get towards the detailed design and the final stages of implementing on this scheme. And that's something that I'd certainly be reaching out through the cluster of schools in Abergavenny to support us on. With regards to lifespan, the service has been based on a lot of information captured and also use across other areas which are by rivers and flood on a regular basis. So we're confident in the service that's been proposed. As I referred to, colleagues at WSP from an engineering perspective may want to add some additional content there, but I think that hopefully covers all the questions from Councillor Bryn.
Okay, thank you, Paul. And give that opportunity to WSP briefly.
Hi, yeah, thank you. My name is Steve Heaney at WSP, and I'm a bridge engineer in the team. In terms of the service life, it's not something I have to hand with me right now, but we've been in consultation with the suppliers to make sure it's suitable and durable, and they've confirmed that it is. I can get some numbers if it's possible to feed back at another point in time. In terms of the material's robustness to flooding, that's obviously been a key concern of ours as well. And to mitigate that, we have put concrete edging adjacent to the surfacing, which again is almost encased with some more concrete adjacent to it, which will provide a stable substrate for the AutoGrip system that we propose.
Okay, thank you for that. And Drew, did you need to come back in, or shall I move on to Councillor Butler? Okay, Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Chair. As a member of my family is now reliant on a mobility scooter, we haven't been able to access the walks down by the river that we once were able to. So I really do welcome these proposals and these improvements. I understand that today that we're not looking at the access points, and that would be very much, looking forward to seeing those, because no good unless you can access it. So I hope they're coming up soon. I do know from walking the meadows that there is a certain amount of grasscrete. My question is, and I may just have missed this, will all the grasscrete be gone and replaced by the resin-based buff-coloured surface? And if it is being taken up, will it then, I see reseeding is in the programme, but any superfluous areas that may be taken up, will they be reseeded as well, please? So those are my questions. Thank you.
Andrew, do you want to bring somebody else in or do it yourself?
Yeah, there will be some elements of reseeding, and you've probably seen that in the detailed landscaping plan that was in the presentation earlier. Phil, if you've got that. Again, I'm not sure whether the scale and resolution will make the annotation that clear.
I suppose I'm asking, will all the grasscrete be gone?
Yeah, it is a replacement service. In terms of the sort of the natural progression then, and the point you make in terms of the recycling and reuse of that, again, that's probably more of a process that sits outside of this planning application in terms of the active travel team's responsibilities and what they do in terms of recycling. It might be worth, if Paul is okay, just to cover that and what would be the intended reuse of any of that subsequent material.
Paul?
Thank you. Yeah, obviously the Castle Meadows scheme currently falls within ownership of Monlife's countryside team. So as part of any of the work and the management plan for implementation recycling will naturally come as part of that, whether it be through the meadows and improvements to other sections that are remaining untouched from existing routes or beyond. I think just coming back to the point around the current grasscrete surface and the reference to mobility scooters, I think that's an important point to make, because the reason that the surface is being proposed is because it's in line with national design guidance, not only for cycling but all wheeled access, and I think mobility scooters is an important part of that. Obviously the access points are key, but also just as much as that journey onwards across the meadows, the grasscrete currently is very uneven and as such very uncomfortable in terms of use for mobility scooters. So we see the proposal today as being a significant improvement for that. I think at one of our recent stakeholder consultation sessions, we heard an example of an individual who can get into the meadows on a mobility scooter, but is unable to get out, and they need assistance from the passing by member of the public to do so, which, again, coming back to one of my points earlier, cannot and should not be the case. So I suppose just in summary, just a commitment from ourselves that recycling and a full recycling plan would be naturally part of what we do for the construction of the scheme.
Okay, thank you for that. I've got nobody else listed to speak. Before I bring Councillor Wright back in, give you a last opportunity. No? Councillor Wright, do you want to sum up?
Thank you, Chair. Just two things. I've heard a lot of mention of the bridge, but that's not part of this application. It already has planning permission. Work on the footing has already commenced. I'm wholeheartedly in favour of the bridge, as are the overwhelming majority of residents I've spoken to, because I also absolutely hate walking across the current bridge. It's not safe. But as I've said, this is not part of what's being discussed today. Dogs on leads. MCC is already looking at a number of PSPOs across the county that will see orders to keep dogs on leads or create new dog exclusion zones. I do and will continue to completely oppose any suggestion of introducing a dogs on leads order on any part of Castle Meadows. In Abergavenny, we already have dog on lead requirements in Bailey Park and in Linda Vista Gardens, so it's essential that we preserve an area for people to be able to let their dogs run, play and be properly exercised. I think if like an on leads order is introduced, a lot of people will just start driving somewhere with their dogs to exercise them properly, and you're going to start undoing some of the environmental benefits of an active travel scheme that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Wright. So while you put the voting function up, Richard, I just remind everybody that this application related to improvements to the existing pedestrian and cycle connectivity across Castle Meadows by providing active travel compliant routes, including the upgrade of existing routes, access points and the replacement of the existing footbridge over the River Gavenny. So that's what we're voting on today. You've got the sorry. Yeah. Did I say access points? Anyway, as I say, that's the item before us. The access points are at the end of each of the particular routes, but we're not talking about the permitted development, which has been well explained throughout the presentations. So if we can go to a vote then, please. Yeah, just doing that now. Councillor Webb is the...
Can I propose accept the officer's recommendations accepted, please?
And the seconder? Councillor Bryn? So can everybody vote no then, please? That's it, isn't it? We got 15, yeah. because, yeah, well, we've got 15 then. Well, it's clear though.
Yeah, but it should be 15.
Yeah.
Those 15.
Because Sarah's out.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Excuse us, folks. We've, for some reason, the system has produced one more vote than we've actually got people. So we're.
It's a clear result, but I think it's best
We'll take the vote again. Don't try and vote again now. Richard will put the vote up.
Perhaps somebody's voted is not on the committee and didn't realise they couldn't.
Well, I don't know. Councillor Wright didn't, so she's the only one who's there. Okay, Richard, can you put the second vote up, please? Okay, we've got the vote now. Can everybody, just for the time being, I know you can vote technically twice and only put it in once, but submit the vote once.
It won't register twice, I don't think.
I know it won't, but somebody did.
One more.
Yeah.
That's it.
We're actually one short now. I don't know what is going on here. How about we take an average page?
How about you just have a 12.5?
Yeah, the result is clear in any event, so it's 12 for approval and 1 abstain. So that's approved.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is application DM 2023-01562. Yeah, she's being brought on now. We'll just wait for Councillor Birch to come back in. Yeah, Dale's out. Jan's gone to the loo, so we'll wait for her to come back in. For the benefit of anybody watching in, one of the members has just had to pop out of the room a second, so we'll just wait for her to come back in. Okay, the next item. Mike, do you want to come down into the chamber? Is application DM 2023-01562. It's the replacement and relocation of the existing children's play area at Castle Dell in Chepstow. The proposals are to remove all of the existing items of play equipment. Just wait for everybody to settle. And slightly relocate the boundary of the play area to the north away from the town wall. Will involve the installation of additional items of equipment between the relocated play area and the water fountain, and install an elevated bank slide from the top level of the site down to the lower footpath. And as I say, that's all in the play area at Castle Dell, Welsh Street in Chepstow. Amy, you're presenting this one?
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, this application is presented to members today as the application has been submitted on behalf of the local authority and that there have been objections from the public. The site is located within the confines of Chepstow Castle in the area locally known as the Dell, to the southwest of the castle. The area is currently the local children's play area, which has a range of standard play equipment. The equipment is getting towards the end of its usable life and would benefit from being upgraded to today's standards and the overall appearance of the site improved. The first slide here shows the 3D visual of the overall concept of the proposals and the approach taken. This view is looking southwesterly with the castle to the right-hand side of the view. The second slide shows the wider site plan. The dark red line shows the extent of the scheduled area to the right-hand side. The town walls to the east and the castle to the north are both scheduled monuments. The site is also within the Chepstow Conservation Area and the Chepstow Development Boundary. Scheduled monument consent has been granted for the area of play within the scheduled area. The principle of the proposals are considered to be acceptable and a suitable use in this location. Indeed, they are designed to enhance the existing provision. The new play area includes play equipment for a wider range of ages and abilities. This includes a pirate ship, a boat for climbing and role play, together with climbing nets, seesaw, accessible roundabout, climbing blocks, tower and slide, and a slope trim trail. The next slide shows a closer view of the southern end of the play area. Concerns have been received from members of the public relating to the potential overlooking issues from the crow's nest climbing structure noted as P13 on the plan, and generally from some of the other taller equipment. However, properties in Delview are located 10 metres back from the town wall. The proposed equipment will be moved further away into the site from the town wall than it is at present. The next slide shows the town wall is approximately 3.4 metres high, and the platform of the crow's nest will be at 3 metres. Therefore, it is proposed to add a 2-metre high anti-climb screen to stop any overlooking towards the rear of the properties at Delview. It is considered that despite the increase in height of the play equipment, the nature and the location of the equipment mean that the level and nature of overlooking is relatively minimal. However, it is proposed to add this 2-metre high privacy screen facing the properties of Delview, redirecting views to the north, to the castle and the wider environment. The slide shows the max height of the crow's nest at 3 metres together with the anti-climb screen at 2 metres. The dark circles shown on the plan here shows areas of ornamental planting through the centre of the play area and adjacent to the scheduled town wall and listed wall of Boscobel House. The play area is also proposed to be bounded by a post and rail fence with native hedging to soften and enhance biodiversity. The next slide shows the central play area with climbing equipment and swings and retained benches to that eastern corner. The next slide shows the arrangement making the best use of the topography, and coming down the bank through the trees there is a slide to a landing platform at the bottom. In addition, it's proposed to enhance the existing steps back up to this higher play area, which is welcomed and supported by a trim trail, again climbing the hill, making the best use of ground levels. The next slide shows in more detail of the proposed slide. This aspect was included later in the consideration of the application and it did not form part of the application when CADU considered scheduled monument consent. It is considered that the addition of the slide through the trees is not considered to have a detrimental impact on the setting of the castle, walls and the wider conservation area. However, as members have seen in late correspondence, the CADU officer has responded favourably to the consultation. In addition, the conditions have been applied to consider the finish colour of the slide and the cladding materials for the tower, ideally in a timber cladding. Concerns have been raised in relation to antisocial behaviour and the scheme being out of context with its surroundings. It is not considered that the play equipment is a play equipment as proposed is of a scale or number that are out of context with the setting. It is considered that the equipment, together with the crucial landscaping, will enhance the environment and the historic setting of the castle and the Dal. In addition to antisocial behaviour, the scheme has been designed with the opposite in mind, to provide a vibrant play space for children of all ages and ability, with plenty of areas for parental supervision. Whilst antisocial behaviour may happen, as it may now, this is not directly attributable to the play equipment proposed. In addition, this is properly a matter for the police and not a material consideration of this application. The last couple of slides show the retained trees on site and the biodiversity net gain plan. The next slide shows the overall master plan for the site and its enhancement. The authority's landscape and ecology officers have reviewed the application and offer no objections. Overall, it is considered that proposed enhancement and landscaping will significantly improve the character and appearance of the area and provides a much-needed community facility and play space within the town centre. Therefore, for the above reasons, the application is recommended for approval, subject to the conditions outlined in the officer's report. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. And Councillor Margaret Griffiths, you've asked to speak.
Thank you.
You have 4 minutes.
Thank you very much, and thank you for allowing me to address this committee. Yes, my name is Margaret Griffiths. I'm the Mayor of Chepstow. I'm here to express the views of the Town Council in support of this application. We know that the majority of residents in Chepstow are in favour of this application because the existing play area does not meet children's needs. The Town Council has a planning committee, and we noted the objection by a few of the residents adjacent to the play area and the town wall. And we discussed those objections, mainly that children may be able to look over the wall into the gardens. However, because of the location of the crow's nest, the height of the wall, the mitigating screen at the top of the crow's nest, we did not consider this to be sufficient to object to the application. In fact, the Town Council wished to support this application. The Friends of the Dell have consulted with families, children and local residents about the play area. They've produced, as a result, a design that will meet the needs of all children of whatever ability and some young people, and we feel that this will have no extra impact on the adjacent residents. As has just been stated by the planning officer, antisocial behaviour is not something we felt that we should consider when looking at this application. The play area is a necessary addition to the centre of Chepstow, which has been without a good play area for many, many years, and also visitors. We hope that the play area will have a positive impact on the economy of Chepstow. Families who visit Chepstow need a variety of activities: the riverside, the castle, cafes, restaurants, and a good play area. So we hope that you, as councillors of Monmouthshire, will support this application to help us in Chepstow improve our own town. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mark. This actually isn't in my ward, but it's adjacent to my ward. I have had many complaints from people in my ward saying that there isn't anywhere in Chepstow. They actually, some of them go to Bristol or South Gloucester to find suitable areas for their children to play in the summer. And I just think this is absolutely perfect for lots of children within the area of Chepstow, and I would propose that we accept it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. Councillor Webb.
Yeah, thank you. Good to see you here today, Councillor from Chepstow, the Mayor. Yeah, this is an exciting project, really innovative equipment there, and I'm sure the people from St Albans will also take and use this facility because there's some unusual stuff there. And thank you for the officers and for Mike for actually putting this all together, and I recommend approval of the application, please. Thank you.
Yes, thanks for that, and I can't wait to get on the slide. Yeah, it'd be great. Yeah, I'd have to be quick to be second because Councillor Rook wants to get on it.
That's Murphy's Law, is it, Phil?
The size, Tony?
That's Murphy's Law, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. I have got nobody else willing to speak. Mike Moran, Councillor Howells.
Just really to add to the comments there, we were fortunate enough to have a play park a few years back, and it's transformed it from what was an area that was hardly used into a really thriving park now, and made it quite a destination park where people come to visit it because it's got such good equipment there. So I can only hope that the same will be for the one in the Dell there as well. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. Is there anything that you want to say to the committee, Mike? You don't have to, but I'll give you the opportunity.
No, it's okay. Thank you, Chairman. Apart from I'm second on the slide.
I got nobody else wishing to speak. Councillor Webb has proposed acceptance. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Prin again. May as well be consistent. Richard, can we have the voting function up, please? That's it.
Okay, so that's approved, 14 for approval.
Okay, thanks for that, everybody. We go back to the agenda then, and the next item is the Planning Code of Practice. And Phil?
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. The Planning Code of Practice, which has been revised and is being reported to the Planning Committee. So the Planning Code of Practice is intended to guide the procedures by which members and officers deal with planning matters and to set standards of probity and conduct expected of them. The County Council seeks to adopt best practice in its administration of the planning process, and it recognises that the public expects the Council to subscribe to the principles of fairness, consistency and objectivity. Members have a key role in ensuring that these principles are followed, and the Council has stated that the planning system must be fair and open. Elected members are critically important in arbitrating between competing arguments. As the planning system affects people's lives and private interests, it can be contentious, as we all know. It's therefore important that the public understands the system and has confidence in its integrity and transparency, and that members and officers avoid impropriety or even the suspicion of that. Members and officers must not only ensure that their conduct accords with the code of conduct for members and professional standards for officers, which cover such matters as declarations of interests, gifts, and hospitality, but when dealing with planning matters, also act in accordance with the planning code of practice. So the changes now tabled before members to the Code of Practice reflect current working practices of both committee and the delegation panel, where such modifications have resulted largely from the move from in-person to virtual or hybrid meetings, as we're having now. Changes to job titles for officers have also been included. If agreed, the item would then be reported to the Council Standards Committee. The Chair of Standards Committee is keen for this to form part of the Council's constitution. At the moment, it's unclear what status this Code of Practice has and who is responsible for updating it. And as this document seeks to prescribe procedure rules to Planning Committee, as well as levels of standards to its members, it should form part of the Council's standing orders at Part 4 of the Constitution. The Head of Legal Services is planning on reporting back to Standards Committee on the 26th of February this month, with the recommendation that the Code of Practice should be included in the Constitution. It will then form part of other amendments to the Constitution that will be considered by the Democratic Services Committee and then full Council in due course later in the year. So we would recommend that the revised Code of Practice is endorsed by members of committee here to enable its progress towards inclusion in the Council's Constitution. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Anybody got any questions they want to ask Phil about this? Oh, excuse me. Councillor Bonfield.
Hi, no questions. I just wanted to say that I'm really happy to see this come before Planning Committee. I think it's really important that this does form part of our constitution, so I'm happy to endorse this. And just to let you know, Phil, Standards Committee has been moved from the 26th of February to the 11th of March, so it'll be discussed then.
Thank you, Councillor Bromfield.
Okay, thank you for that. I did pick up on that from an email exchange earlier, so thanks for that. Anybody else? No, in that case, Richard, can we have the voting function up, please?
Someone to second it?
Yeah.
Happy to second.
Yeah, Dale's seconding. So if we can vote now, then please. We're too short at the moment. We should. Is she? What are we going to do? Shall I ask everybody to vote again? We've only got 13 votes, and we should have 15. Can everybody press the submit vote again, please?
Did you catch me?
Pardon?
Did you catch my vote, Paul?
You can't do it electronically, can you? Through the 40.
Well, we're still one short.
Yeah.
It's overwhelming, isn't it?
It's overwhelming, but yeah, but as it's yeah, we've got to know. Right? Okay, right, that's good.
Okay, so that's agree with the recommendation.
Okay, thanks for that. The next item on the agenda is...
Could I ask a question? Could I raise a question about the next move on this? We've agreed the move to recommend. It's a very hefty document, this. Phil says it will go to the Standards Committee. Will the Standards Committee discuss the document and it then go back to democratic services and then onto the Constitution?
Phil?
Yeah, as I understand it, yeah, the head of legal services presents it to Standards Committee with a recommendation that it's approved and taken forward then to form part of the council's constitution. Presumably they can debate it, just as members could here. Whether they will remains to be seen, I guess.
There are 13 pages, 13 or 14 pages on the actual planning code of practice. Perhaps Frey's got an answer. She got her hand up.
Frey, do you want to come in on that?
Well, I think Standards Committee are aware of the document. You know, that's why it's come to planning today. I don't know if we'll, you know, discuss the internals of the document, but it will obviously come to standards with recommendations and then on to full council to become one of the standing orders within the Constitution. I guess if you want some, you know, clarity on that, you'd be best to email James, the monitoring officer, or the chair of standards.
All right, okay, that's fine. Okay, yeah. Thanks, Phil.
It's a fairly easy read, and anyway, it was quite light, I thought. And perhaps
it is a light read, yes, but just the 13 pages. Okay.
Get on, you've got plenty of time. Okay. Can everybody please note on item 6 the planning appeals received between 1st October and the 31st of December. There is one item which is not on the agenda, which I don't see why we can't deal with it now while the recording's on. We've always had planning site visits on a Monday, and sometimes when we have them on a Monday, if something crops up, it's not giving much time for officers to deal with queries, consultations that are required in addition. So there's a thought that perhaps we could move them to a Friday morning before the meeting instead of the Monday morning. Is everybody comfortable with that? I could see Councillor Bond is not.
I won't be able to attend any Friday. Chair. I'm tied up with a community fridge in Mega, which is totally. I cannot move.
Yeah. Oh, okay. We're only gauging people's response at the moment. This is not in tablets of stone. This is just asking how we are. Councillor Bond, you would have difficulty, would you?
Yes, food bank on Friday morning, and then also if it goes into the afternoon, I have counselling. So I conduct counselling sessions with other people.
Okay, and we've picked up Councillor Riley's thoughts. Okay, we'll go back to the drawing board on that. Right, in that case, then that wraps up the proceedings. Thanks very much, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks. Bye.